Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of No More Small Talk. I have a special treat. Um, Very great guy by the name of Michael Ulanski. And right now, as we're going through this pandemic and people are suffering day to day, not knowing when the next paycheck is coming, it's really important that we focus on personal finance and saving and really being able to navigate difficult times with good financial strategies. And so, Mike, I want to talk to you a little bit about the great financial strategies that you've come up with in order to put yourself in the position that you're in.
Sure. I'll jump right into it. So, number one, what I would tell everybody who's watching this is to start living below your means. That's almost the number one strategy that I can tell anybody who, I would come to me for advice is to live below your means. Don't look at your neighbor and say, "Oh, that guy got a Mercedes or BMW, or she has a Louis Vuitton or a Chanel," and expect to get the same thing because you may not be at the same level. So what you always want to do is you want to live below your means and try to uh, do that. Number one. Two, what I would say is, as you mentioned and alluded to, is try to keep yourself debt free. Actually, do have debt. I do have a few mortgages, but it's what you call good debt versus bad debt. So I don't have any credit card debt. And the credit card balances are paid in full. And that's one of the rule number one I follow in order to keep that true is I live below my means. So if I don't have the money to buy something, I will not buy it that month. I will wait till I save up and then buy it the next month. And that is kind of the 1-2 punch rule. So you can have debt, but have good debt. Student debt can be good debt. And so I would say anybody who's looking to take on good debt, that's okay. Especially now the interest rates are low. So whether you want to close on a house or you want to buy a condo or a co-op in the city, I think it's advantageous to accumulate some good debt as long as you're not going over your means and getting a $2.5 million apartment when you can only afford maybe a $1.2 million apartment. And don't always let the bankers tell you what you can afford. Right? You need to be your own judge and run your own calculations because only you know your own personal finances and what you may or may not be spending money on.
Now, with respect to living below your means, how have you managed to do that? Because we live in this age where everybody is really showing off, what they have on Instagram and Snapchat, and it becomes very difficult for young people and even people my age. I find myself sometimes feeling like, well, that guy got the leather jacket. I want to get the leather jacket too. Like I want the Louis Vuitton too. I want to show people that I'm making it. How have you been able to fight that temptation, Mike?
It really has a lot to do with my upbringing, I believe. I was always taught to put a little bit away. As a young kid, I wasn't given everything and handed down everything from my parents or my grandparents. They always kind of made me work for it. So strategy was, hey, listen, if you wanted to earn $10, all right, you'd have to take out the trash this week and next week, and you'll get $10. And those are some of the examples from when I was little. But, when I went away to college, I did see other people who had maybe got the iPhone first or, had a better MacBook computer than I did. But really, I've just become a little bit more educated by reading a few finance books. One that comes to mind is Millionaire Next Door, where he kind of preaches, do not look at what your neighbor's doing or what the person next to you is doing or what your best friend's even doing. Because you never know what sort of situation they're in. Just because they have something doesn't mean that they're not struggling. And the real big thing is when you are struggling with your finances, that puts a lot of stress on other aspects of your life.
Thank you for that. Right now during COVID, times are a little bit different. Are there any tips that you would give for individuals, given that they might have just lost their job, they're facing different economic issues that they haven't faced in the past? Any advice that maybe you would be able to give?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that I would do is I would say to reach out to anybody who may have a lease agreement with or some sort of agreement with, whether that be your landlord, credit card company, mainly those two as examples. For example, what I did with all of my tenants is I reached out to them in the beginning of, actually end of March, and I just said, listen, if you guys need anything, let me know. I know that we're going through a difficult time. You know, if you lose your job or anything, just appreciate it. If you just let me know right away, that way we can sort of figure out and kind of get through this together. And so you kind of want to be in that position, whether you have student loans or credit card debt or a mortgage, that you may be in a position where you cannot make payments towards that, or monthly HOA fees or anything like that. You want to be honest and respect the landlord or the company that you signed an agreement with in order to take that money. And I believe that that would be beneficial for both parties. At least both parties will know exactly what the other's doing. And that way you can hopefully get through this together. Because that's really the main thing, is you kind of have to get through this together. Because it's not going to be beneficial for anybody to have a winner and a loser, because in the end, it's just going to spread inequality a little bit more in this country. And then that's not something that I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to bring everybody up versus have just the 1% haves and the 99% have nots.
Also, I think that during this time, we've had previous episodes talking about the housing market and medical issues and expenses. Is there anything during this time that you think people should take advantage of?
Ooh, good question. Housing market brings a good perspective into it. So in the housing market, interest rates have dropped dramatically from where they were a year ago. So if you were in the market for something and you're looking to take advantage of low interest rates and you still have your job and you're able to negotiate with a bank, I believe that now is a good time in order to go in and or pick up the phone, call one of your bankers. And I think that they'll be willing to do a deal, because not a lot of deals are being done, being that a lot of people are staying home, not looking at homes, not doing anything like that. So a lot of opportunity probably exists. But my personal feeling is that more opportunities will exist 6 months to a year down the line, when this kind of all plays out. But we'll wait and see. That's just my personal feeling and take on the situation. And I'm sort of staying on the sidelines right now, trying to see how everything plays out. But hopefully everyone else is doing well. And in terms of medical bills, I would say that now's a good time to maybe pick up the phone and negotiate if you have any sort of medical bills or anything outstanding, to try to negotiate that down a little bit. And at all times, you can be overbilled in some of these aspects. And one of the ways to take advantage is just pick up the phone and call and ask if there's anything they can do to sweeten the deal for you, and maybe you can make some sort of a plan.
I recently read an article that Warren Buffett said that if you come into some money, his best advice is to pay off your credit card debt. The first thing that you should do is pay off your credit card debt. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, because the chances that you are going to outperform your credit card interest rate are slim to none. So even Warren Buffett has not outperformed the standard credit card interest rate, which is somewhere in between 17 to 22%, or even higher, actually, depending on if your credit limit is pretty low, or your credit score, is pretty low. So the chances that you will outperform that, especially in today's stock market, which is a little bit on the high end of valuations in terms of historical perspective. So I would agree with Warren, and I would also pay off the credit card debt before looking to invest in other places.
Mike, I want to talk to you a little bit about savings. Or can you tell us a little bit about savings plans? Like, do you have a good savings plan that you'd recommend that people engage in? Because times like these, especially right now, are really highlighting the importance of having money set aside for a rainy day or a rainy month or a rainy year. So
Yep.
what are some tips for setting aside money for bad days like these?
Yep. So number one for me is make a budget. Make a budget, and this is how I would start making a budget. What I would do is I would start at the first of the month. So take next month and start on June 1st. And now we're in a little bit of a tough time, and your budget might not be what it typically is during regular times. But even in today's day and age, you can still start on June 1st and see exactly where, and write down where and when and how much you spent money each day. So if you spent 20 bucks at the Stop and Shop on June 1st, write that in there and use each line and actually see exactly where you spent your money. So by having a 1 month look back at what exactly bills that you paid, you can go back and then revert to that and kind of see where can I cut, maybe where I can add a little bit more in order to increase the value of my life too. Maybe if you think that a trip or some sort of spa treatment or something to treat yourself is good. I'm not advocating to not spend at all, but you can really take a good look from 1 month, because your expenses, they rarely vary too much from month to month in terms of what you spend on. So if you're going out to eat 3 times a week in June, you probably are going to do that in July too. In terms of if we were in ordinary times. Now, in today's day and age, I'm not sure if that same thing applies, but in ordinary times, I would say that that's the case. And then from there, what you are going to try to do is create a savings plan. I would do it based off of percentages. So I would take a percentage that I'm comfortable with and set myself with a goal. So if you're making $2,000 a month, let's say, and you want to goal yourself at 5%, so you're trying to save $100 per month. Now that sounds unreasonable, but it really depends on your situation. Maybe you're a college student who's making $2,000 a month bartending or being a waitress or waiter on the side, and you're living with your parents and you can afford to save that $100 a month, but you have to set goals for yourself. And that would be the only way to get yourself to that point.
All right, Mike. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure. Until next time.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we'll have you back on the show.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you,
Stay safe.
Mike. You too.
Bye.